Today on KUJH News, after a loss in the Elite Eight, what happens to coveted KU Final Four shirts? Lawrence businesses uncover the process of selling March Madness gear. Kansas senators will vote on a proposal for Kansas Medicaid expansion. And we explore KU Greek life and its latest goal to expand membership. KUJH News starts now.
From the University of Kansas, you're watching KUJH News.
Welcome into KUJH News. I'm Alex McClune. In a year, Kansas was poised to reach the Final Four. A crushing Elite Eight loss is also affecting Lawrence businesses, including clothing stores. Most companies nowadays wait until the end of a game to produce championship t-shirts, but some actually make the shirts in anticipation of a KU win. The store's Jocks and Niche Sporting Goods is sending back 100 shirts back to its producer. T-shirt printing company Sun Creation says it made around 500 shirts if KU won the Midwest Regional. If the Jayhawks were moving on to Phoenix, companies would have printed more than 20,000 shirts Saturday night. T-shirts printed prematurely used to be sent overseas to impoverished countries, but companies are no longer allowed to do so because they were showing up on auction sites. Printing companies now destroy the shirts. Kansas lawmakers are closer to finalizing a 2-year plan that restores funding to universities. Last year, Governor Sam Brownback ordered a 4% cut in state aid to universities. KU took a larger cut than smaller universities under the assumption the university receives more funding through other sources such as student tuition. Under the new proposal, KU would receive an additional $1.6 million in the upcoming year and $2.9 million in the following. Both House and Senate committees will present budget plans this week for the House and full Senate to vote on. While Kansas lawmakers are working on a state budget and school budgets, KUJH reporter Lauren Davidson reports Medicaid has also been a topic of discussion.
The Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee has approved a bill that could expand KanCare, Kansas's Medicaid program. Full Senate will soon begin debating the bill that could expand Medicaid for up to 180,000 low-income Kansans. The expansion would allow non-disabled, childless adults who currently do not qualify, no matter their income, to become eligible for KanCare. The bill also proposes individuals earning $16,000 a year to be eligible, an increase from the current $9,000 income limit. While federal funding could cover up to 90% of the expansion, it could still cost the state an additional $67 million in its first full year, which some lawmakers say is money Kansas doesn't have. Supporters of the bill say the expansion would create jobs and increase federal funding later. Full Senate has never voted on a Medicaid expansion bill. If full Senate passes the bill, then it will go to Governor Brownback's office. Brownback has said he's against the bill, but has not said whether or not he would veto it. Reporting from the
Governor Brownback opposes the expansion, but he may not be a part of the final decision. Earlier this month, reporters tied Brownback to possible future jobs in the Trump administration. We had some excellent weather over the last week here in Lawrence, but now students are back from spring break and it feels like the spring season is still a ways away. Jacob Asherman is here with a first look at our forecast. Jacob?
Yeah, guys, you know the saying, April showers bring May flowers, and we're not quite to April yet, but the further on we have gone in spring, we've started to see this return of this spring weather pattern that's been absent for at least the first half of March after a long and dry February. And start to March, we are starting to see some showers and thunderstorms. Actually, last week we saw a couple, and this morning was also the same. We saw a few pop-up showers and thunderstorms moving through our area at 6 in the morning, pushing to the northeast. Those have since dissipated. Honestly, it's probably a bit of a gloomy start to your week, especially if you've been sitting at a beach all week. But the good news is we are in the clear for the rest of the night. But can we say the same for the rest of the week? I'll have your full details on your forecast coming up in a few minutes, guys.
All right, thanks, Jacob. More news here in Lawrence. KU Greek Life is allowing transgender members in 2 of its sororities. The sorority Delta Gamma putting out this message saying its membership is open to all women late last year, and Alpha Chi Omega being the most recent, citing its decision as well. KU Panhellenic President Brittany Beal says that inclusion is the vision her executive board has for Campus Greek Life.
We are trying to spread the message that as a Panhellenic community, the exclusive kind of cookie cutter individual that our community is known for is not who we are or who we want to be. We want every individual to feel accepted.
There is no further information concerning other KU sororities' stance on transgender members. The history of the Black Writing Project is a group holding panels and discussions. The main goal of the group, recover and preserve the work and history of African American writers.
And it is a recovery project, a publishing project, professional development project, and humanities, applied humanities and outreach.
Spring, last summer, around that time was sort of right out of the gate was this Black Book Interactive project, which is one of our main projects right now, where we're going and finding a bunch of novels written by African American authors and sort of looking to include those in a database of works that allows like scholars, researchers to put into conversation the issue of race and racial issues with other texts.
The History of Black Writing Project has one more event that features Nikki Giovanni. The presentation, titled Poetry, A New Conversation, will take place in Woodruff Auditorium on April 4th at 6 p.m. Last week, a massive fire in Overland Park burned an apartment complex that was under construction, causing nearly $20 million in damage. Here in Lawrence, most apartment college students reside in are a quite bit older and more prone to burning in fires. One local businessman knows one way to ensure college students.
There's a lot of college students that aren't covered. I think mistakenly people think that they're covered by their parents' homeowner's insurance, for example. That carries over to an apartment that the student rents, but that's not the case.
Seeing an event like that occur, it kind of scares you. It kind of wakes you up a little bit to go and get your renter's insurance and make sure you're covered.
Haven't had anybody specifically talking about the fire in Overland Park, but we have had issues in the past where storms or fires have hit here in Lawrence, and it's prompted a lot of interest from people.
If you're worried about plans putting a dent in your wallet, Hodges says the price of renter's insurance is equal to just a large pizza once a month. Well, coming up on KUJH News, President Donald Trump halts Obamacare repeal, what his next move will be, and social media calls attention to missing girls in Washington, D.C., looking for the government to get involved. We'll be back after this.
We connected so fast when we first met. I think that our relationship will last for a lifetime.
Being a role model for someone, being there for someone, there's nothing I can compare it to. She has uncles up in Minnesota that treat me like I'm their own now.
I feel like she's actually my big sister in a way.
It's been one of the best decisions I think I've ever made.
You're doing great. We're gonna try this again, okay?
Okay.
Wheels, pedals, handlebar, brakes. Sit up straight, keep your weight in the center, keep your eyes on the road, hands on the grips, button the seat. If we feel ourselves falling, what do?
Just keep
pedaling. Good girl. Now remember, it's all about balance and steering. Steer with your hands, steer with your body. Steer into the corners and you stay out of trouble. And the bell's your buddy, so go ahead and ding that. All right, you ready? Here we go. Pedal, honey, pedal. There you go, you're a bike rider.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
After a failed healthcare reform bill, the Trump administration will put a hold on its efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare. The GOP has faced much criticism for trying to rush the bill. This NBC Meet the Press graphic shows just how much time it took to perfect major legislation in the past. As you can see, Obamacare took 187 days compared to Trump's American Health Care Act 17. The White House has decided to leave the ACA in place and move on to tax reform. Washington, D.C. officials are responding to growing concerns over missing African American and Hispanic women. But city leaders are saying there hasn't been an increase in cases of missing persons. The average is more than 2,000 a year since 2012.
But what I'll say now is that now that there is this increased focus, we know that 2,000 missing cases is just far too many. We know that 523 missing cases so far this year is far too many.
On social media, some have called on the FBI to get involved, but there's no indication it will happen. Well, rising temperatures could take a toll on the Midwest in the near future. KUJH reporter Nicole Fye takes a look at the negative effects of this year's warmer winter.
In the March of 1960, 29.3 inches of snow fell in the Kansas City area.
I can remember as a kid, it wouldn't be too unusual to have a real heavy snow and long periods of cold weather, 20 degrees in March.
But Roger Boyd knows the times have changed.
If that would happen now, that would be a severe impact.
Currently, northeast Kansas snowfalls have totaled around 5.9 inches, which is good for the fourth lowest seasonal snowfall in history. The month of March contributed around 1.3 inches to keep the 2016-2017 season from placing third. But it's not just the seasonal snowfall and totals in March that are abnormal. According to the High Plains Regional Climate Center, which includes Kansas, between 1895 and 2012, winters have increased by 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit.
I think what we would see is the long-term pattern is we're definitely seeing higher and higher average temperatures.
The Midwest is likely to see warmer, wetter conditions in winter and spring and hotter, drier conditions in summer. With that warmer weather, air quality is reduced and allergens increase. But the greatest impact might be seen in the decreasing yields of crops in the long term. Boyd is hopeful April won't fall victim to these trends for the sake of fragile environments like the Baker wetlands, but he knows all too well the impact they've already had. Nicole Fye reporting for KUJH.
It may not look like it now, but starting in April, temperatures are expected to reach 60 to 70 degrees. As for this week, Jacob Asherman is back with a look at our forecast. Jacob?
All right, guys, time to dust off the umbrellas and break out those raincoats. Spring is finally here after a dry February and start to our March. We're starting to see those typical rain showers we see, but the good news to that is it's going to bring some mild temperatures before things especially mellow out this weekend. Now, one thing I do want to point out, we have been kind of monitoring this drought, and I have talked about that over the last month or so. We still are under a fair drought. You can see here, still receiving under an inch of rain. These showers and thunderstorms we received last week have certainly helped things, and this rain we are going to get this week will help. I doubt we're going to see over 2.5 inches like our average is, but you can see with this drought, we are in fact under a moderate drought. Not the worst, it could be worse. You can see our neighbors to the west in central Kansas, things are a little bit moist, more wet there. Now the good news is we are seeing what we call a progressive pattern. Now what this means is we're expecting a series of upper level disturbances which cause us these showers and thunderstorms we see during spring. It's going to be a pretty active start to things before our weather finally starts to mellow out. Tonight, 41 degrees. It's going to be a chilly day. Those clouds that have been sitting over our area are going to break up a little bit. Fortunately, it is going to be dry. We're not expecting any redevelopment of those showers and thunderstorms we saw this morning, although we might still have a light wind out of the north. Now, starting your day off, it's going to be cloudy most of the day. Temperatures are going to hover around the mid-50s to low 60s with our rain chances progressively increasing. Now, we are going to see as the day goes later, our rain chances again will increase, but fortunately, looks like most of the rain is going to be overnight, so you shouldn't have to really worry about any rain if you have any plans tomorrow. But you can see, looking at our 5-day forecast, man, it's going to be rainy. I can't remember the last time we've had this much rain in a week. 30% chance on Tuesday before. Seeing rain for most of Wednesday and Thursday, but just in time for the weekend, 66 degrees, partly cloudy skies. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, guys.
All right, thanks, Jacob. Good forecast if you're hoping for sunnier weather, I guess, but for basketball fans in Ohio, their forecast probably came at the absolute worst time.
Yes, for fans watching regional round action of the NCAA tournament in Ohio and other parts of the upper Midwest, they got to see Kentucky's Malik Monk tie the game on an amazing, we'll see it later, 3-point basket. And then as North Carolina brought the ball down the court, weather update. When they come back, handshake line, they don't know what happened at the rest of the game. So for those fans in Ohio, hopefully they're watching KUJH News. Coming up next in sports, more on the exciting finishes in the regional round of the NCAA tournament. Plus, while Jayhawk fans don't need to be reminded that Kansas won't be playing in the 2017 Final Four, a few of the coaches who are headed to Phoenix have big ties to the Sunflower State. That and more next. It was great. We got it.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
When my youngest, Addie, was 2.5, she was diagnosed with leukemia. The doctor stopped by and said, well, it is leukemia. And then the next thing she said, without even missing a beat, was, and here's what we're going to do. We are so blessed and lucky to say that she is extremely healthy. I could not be more grateful for groups like the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It was that research that let that doctor say, it's leukemia, and here's what we're going to do.
It's not always easy being a dad.
Do you have panda asthma too? Does that run in the family? This is the home of the most priceless kung fu artifacts.
But when you make an effort,
Dad, we're not supposed to touch anything. Oh, sorry. Go along, son.
it's always worth it.
Whoa!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
I am gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
The earthquakes you see in movies are one thing, but real life is a completely different animal. Just because you can't predict an earthquake doesn't mean that you can't prepare for one. In the event of a real earthquake, you should drop, cover, and hold on. Visit ready.gov/earthquake and practice what to do to keep you and your family safe in the event of a real earthquake. And you'll be seen as a hero by your family and your loved ones.
Visit ready.gov/earthquake today.
Kansas basketball fans will have to wait at least one more year for the team to get back to the Final Four. Following the 74-60 loss to Oregon on Saturday night, our reporters were in the locker room to capture the reactions of the Kansas players moments after the end to the KU season.
No. We felt like we had all the pieces to the puzzle just to get, to the Final Four. We just came up short today.
Every team that makes a run in this tournament gets one crappy game where stuff just doesn't go well for them. But you got to win that game no matter what. And this was our one game, unfortunately, and we didn't win. Just lost one of the toughest games of my life. I haven't, thought about anything outside of that.
The Jayhawks will lose 3 seniors to graduation, while a number of others must decide to stay or depart for the professional ranks. The good news for Jayhawk fans, late night in the Fog is just about 6 months away. Certainly the most likely underclassman to depart for the NBA would be Kansas forward Josh Jackson. The freshman averaged 16.2 points and 7.4 rebounds per game. While Jackson says he hasn't thought about the decision, his return would be a surprise. If he decides to go pro, a number of different NBA franchises would have a chance at the Detroit native. The draft order will be determined at the lottery on May 16th, and the draft itself is to be held in just under 3 months on June 22nd. Players have until 60 days prior to the draft to declare for the NBA. From 68 teams to just a few, and the Final Four is set. North Carolina, Gonzaga, Oregon, and South Carolina are making preparations for the final games of the tournament to be held in Phoenix. While Bill Self and the Jayhawks won't be booking flights, there will be some Kansas representation at the Final Four. Fans remember Roy Williams, who coached the Jayhawks before Bill Self. Frank Martin, who is now the head coach at South Carolina, coached Kansas State from 2007 to 2012. Finally, Dana Altman, who just led the Oregon Ducks to victory over the Jayhawks, was the head coach at Kansas State in the early 1990s. The national semifinal games are coming up this Saturday in Phoenix, Arizona, and the national championship game is just a week and a few hours away. The first weekend of the NCAA tournament didn't bring as much of the madness or late game excitement that fans are used to, but the regional action over this past weekend did not disappoint. After giving up a go-ahead shot just moments before, Florida sank a buzzer beater to win and move on to the Elite Eight, where they would eventually lose to South Carolina. And at the regional final in Memphis, the Kentucky Wildcats tied the game on an improbable shot from Malik Monk, only to lose the game seconds later on the other end. North Carolina sophomore Luke May hits the game-winning jumper with just fractions of a second left to play, and he sends the Tar Heels to the final leg of the big dance. Going back to class after spring break is hard enough, but after all of the post-game celebration and festivities, Luke May made it back to Chapel Hill in time for his 8 a.m. business class. This footage is via an early morning Snapchat. The hero received a standing ovation from his peers for his performance and game-winning shot before taking his seat for the lecture. Not a bad way to start your day.
No, and I'm sure he has practice later, so for fans of Roy Williams, I'm sure they're happy to see him get back to the Final Four. Well, that's all we have for today. We'll be back on Wednesday.
From the University of Kansas, you're watching KUJH News.